Can everyone do me a favor and just close your eyes with me for a minute? Close your eyes and think about when you were 14 years old. Do you remember what 14 felt like? Do you remember the smells, the feelings, the thoughts that you had then? You're probably just in high school, a freshman maybe. You're probably a little gawky, a little insecure, a little awkward, or maybe you were the coolest kid in town. But just take that in for a second. Now open your eyes. Now that you have that age in your mind, I'd like to share with you now my story at 14. You're all probably wondering why there's a backpack in front of a mic. And well, it's because although there are a lot of different things in this world that might seem like they're more important than I, nothing compares to me. Everyone in here does or has owned one just like me. And we each have our own story, but today I'd like to share with you my story and the journey I went on with a boy named Giuseppe. It all started, I remember it like it was yesterday. He was 14 years old, and we had just moved to Las Vegas 6 months ago, adjusting to a new school, trying to make new friends as we try to find our way through our freshman year. I had it pretty good, though. Not too many people pay attention to a backpack. But G, well, he had to go through with all the insecurities that every 14-year-old boy already has. And he was new? Forget about it. Good luck, kid, I thought. It all began on my way home after watching my very first Powder Puff game. And it was around 9:30 o'clock at night, and I hadn't been home in about a day and a half. But the day before, I'd had an argument with my mom. So as I'm walking home, all I could think about was what I was going to say to try to calm the waters of our feud. But as I got closer, something just didn't feel right. But I wasn't exactly sure why. As I approached my house, my heart just started beating a little faster, and I had this rush of anxiety throughout my body as I reached over to open the gate that surrounds my house. I walk up the driveway, and I get to the front door. It's locked. So I go around to the front window, and I take off my backpack and I place it next to me, and expecting the absolute worst, I cup my hands over my eyes and I look inside. Everything's gone. He took a step back to try to compose himself, but how could he? He looked over at me, and that's when I knew. It was real. She was gone. She had completely abandoned us, and we were all alone. And just like that, he picked me up, and we went back to the only other place that we knew, our school. We walked around for some time, but finally settling here, the top of the press box of our high school bleachers. This is where we would live for the next several months, telling no one we were homeless. I had to be stronger than ever then, eventually becoming Giuseppe's everything. I was his pillow at night, his shoulder to cry on, his person to talk to, and his storage unit, holding nothing more but a toothbrush, a change of clothes, and a few of his books. Some could easily say I was the Wilson to his Tom Hanks. I've told this story so many different times, and it always changes. Not the facts, though as I get older, I am willing to give more and more details about what happened in that part of my life. But the emotions that run through me when I tell my story, that has changed completely. And that's what I want from everybody here today, to change not only the way that you see yourself, but the way that you see others. Now, as you can imagine, in that moment, my life was forever changed. And the argument that led to my abandonment was about school. You see, I wanted to stay in school as I had seen my older siblings drop out and become addicted to drugs and alcohol. My mom, thinking that it was I was just going to be on the same track, just said, quit while you're ahead. You're not going to amount to anything anyways. You're going to drop out and we're moving to Colorado. Obviously, I disagreed. But like with every argument, you assume that it'll all find a way to get sorted. But never like this, especially not with your mom. In the mornings, we'd wake up, he'd splash some water in his hair, and he'd brush his teeth in this water fountain. And just like that, we'd make our way into school. First period, ready to go. We joined every after-school program just so that we could stay indoors a little longer. Sometimes we would go to a classmate's house to study just so that he could quickly jump into a shower. And sometimes he would even be able to steal a clean shirt and stuff me with it. And as you can imagine, 14-year-old boys already don't smell all that great. Imagine him. Lights. I consider myself to be extremely lucky. And although I know that there are a whole bunch of other people throughout the world that have survived much worse, I consider myself lucky because I had a backpack. And because along the way, I found some of the most beautiful, compassionate, and courageous people that not only helped me through this time, but who have left a lasting impression stamped on my heart. At school, I could eat breakfast and lunch off a free and reduced lunch program. But at night, well, dinner was a different story. Sometimes I'd go to a classmate's house to study, but when that didn't work, in hopes that I'd be invited for dinner. But when that didn't work, I resorted to stealing. There was a 7-Eleven that I used to go to almost every day, and there was a guy that worked there, maybe in his mid-30s, but he was there almost every time I walked in. And I'd walk in, super casual, and I'd grab a few things, and I'd run out as fast as I could. I mean, I would just run like the world was behind me. But this guy would never chase me. And I remember thinking, God, this is so easy. This guy is so lazy. I'm going to go back tomorrow. And I did. And it was crazy because all of a sudden, summer came. And now my breakfast and lunch were gone. And when I walked back into that 7-Eleven that first day of summer, I mean, it was amazing. I walked in, and to my surprise, sitting there at the end of the counter was a packed lunch and a drink, just waiting for me. You see, this guy, he wasn't lazy. He knew, and he saw me. But instead of chasing me down or calling the police, he helped. And every day after, he did the exact same thing. But it wasn't all smiles and rainbows. There were times when I wanted to give up, times when I doubted I would make it, just wondering, where I would end up. And could this be it? All that life had to offer me was on top of that press box? No, this can't be it. Now, a lot of you might be wondering, well, why didn't you just get help? And it's because my biggest fear was that if I was turned into the police or to child services, I was going to be forced into a system that would drag me from school to school, having no say in where I ended up. A system where abuse is rarely reported. The system often thought of as a system for bad kids. Not abused kids, not neglected kids, not abandoned kids, just bad kids. So with that being said, please join me in not only looking at homeless youth differently, but in seeing that this is, in fact, an issue. There's one day in particular that haunts him till this day. And it wasn't the day where he ate out of a dumpster or any of those other days. No. We're walking down the street that summer, and we ran into some upperclassmen who had a car. Air conditioning. Of course we were going to jump in. Survival mode. Let's go. We were driving around for some time, and these guys knew there was something up with G. Maybe he looked hungry or desperate. But one of the guys looked over at him, and he said, "Man, I really want a skateboard." Conveniently, we happened to be driving by a skate park. So the guy looked back over at G and he said, "I'll give you $10 if you steal a skateboard from me." I was hungry. I really wanted to eat. And $10 was a lot of money to me then, right? So I said I would. Outside of the skate park, across the street, there was a boy sitting at a bus stop with a skateboard. And I was just going to walk past, grab the skateboard and run. But something happened. As soon as I grabbed the skateboard to start running, he grabbed the other end. All of a sudden, I had to look him in the eyes. This kid was scared. He was probably 12 or 13 years old, not too much younger than me at the time. But I remember just yanking it, and I said, "Let go of the skateboard." He said, "Please don't take my skateboard. Please don't take my skateboard." And I said, "Let go of the damn skateboard, kid. I need it." He yanked back. He said, "Please don't take my skateboard." I tugged one more time, and he tugged back, and in an instant, I balled my fist, and I punched him as hard as I could in the face. He let go, and he dropped to his knees. And those tears that he was holding back just came rushing out. Without thinking, I started running, and everything seemed to just slow down. I could see the guys right in front of me hanging out of the window just cheering me on. I just remember thinking, is this it? This can't be it. There has to be something more. What had I become? At that moment, I had adapted to the very worst that I'd ever been. This wasn't me. I got to the car, I threw the skateboard in, and I got in, and we just took off. We made it 5 blocks maybe. But I remember just sitting in the car, and the world just stopped. Thinking, I can't do this. What am I doing? I told the guy to pull over. I got out, and I never even took the money. Never spoke to those guys again either. And I think about that moment so often, just wishing I had made different decisions. But now as an adult, I'm actually kind of glad that it happened. Because what I saw was not who I wanted to become. Today when I talk at schools, I leave the classroom with the skateboard deck and ask everybody to sign it as a sign of commitment to understanding to those who are out on the streets struggling to eat tonight, to those who have made and are making decisions that are not them in order to survive. It's a commitment to a greater community. It's a commitment to understanding that there's probably a kid just like me in that class. It's a commitment to healing. Ultimately, there was a teacher who knew something was wrong, but who was compassionate enough to take me in, to get me the proper help, and to get me to a place that would give me shelter and resources, but that would also let me have a say in where I went to school and what I wanted for my future. Not a lot of kids like me get that or got that. But because she was able to see me for who I was and not what I was, she helped. There are kids that will run tonight out of fear from abuse because their family has abandoned them. They might find their way to the top of a press box, to a gang, to the back of a dumpster, or to a pimp. But maybe, just maybe before they adapt to survive, maybe we can adapt, change the way we see them. Maybe we could stand with them to amplify their voices so that they're not treated as property anymore, able to have a say about where they feel safe, helping them stay in school, and helping them realize their full potential. According to the Covenant House organization, in 2016, it was recorded that there were 1.6 million kids out on the streets doing exactly that, surviving. All without a best friend like a backpack and a series of adults who care enough to see differently. Ladies and gentlemen, we've all done something and regretted it. I began to see myself differently at a very young age. Now I want all of you to not only see yourselves, but to see them differently. And I want all of you to please help me make a difference. Thank you guys so much.